Now, once you've finished assigning all your resources to your tasks, you could find a couple of issues arise. Those issues are concerned around resource over allocation. Now, if that occurs, so you've effectively assigned more resources than you have available to you, you will see the little red man icon. Now, that icon appears against all the tasks in the task pane that have over allocated resources. So in the case of our particular project here, which is my kitchen underscore problems, we have 3 tasks with little red people. And when you hover, they say this task has over allocated resources. Now, if you look in the resource sheet, any resources that are over allocated also appear in red and have the same icon in the information column. So the little red person icon. So how do we deal with over allocation? Well, there are a number of ways. The easiest is to increase your maximum number of units. So if we've tried to use more project managers than we have available, we only have 1, I could increase that to 2 and the little red man will disappear and then I'm not over allocated. However, I've cheated. I've assumed we can get a second project manager when really that's not what I want to be doing. I need to be solving the problem that I've caused. So let's put that back to 1. But that is a potential solution. In the case of joiners, for example, I've tried to over allocate more than 4. If I change that to 5 or maybe even 6, then that red will disappear and I don't have a problem. But the reason that I've set this max is that that is the maximum number of that particular resource that is available to me. Now you'll notice that material resources will not go red and will not get a little red person icon because the material resources do not have a maximum setting. The assumption is if we need 1,500,000 screws, we can find somehow 1,500,000 screws. There is not a finite resource. When it comes to work resources, we have this finite maximum. But that is one option. We just simply allow more resources. So we need a 5th joiner or we need a second project manager. One potential solution. However, not usually the best solution because you're going to dramatically increase your costs. Second option is to actually visit the tasks involved. So let's go back to the Gantt chart. Pick on the task involved, which is here, remove old units, and effectively explore the task. How could we change things around a little? Well, let's do the split so I can see what's happening. Remove old units is taking a week, and I've allocated a project manager and a joiner. Well, I have a project manager and a joiner. In this case, I haven't over allocated the project manager to this particular task. It's because he's allocated to 2 tasks that run concurrently. If I look in the Gantt chart here, we can see the project manager is meant to be working on both of these tasks at the same time, which obviously is impossible. So how do we get around that? We could change the relationship. At the moment, both of these tasks are due to finish at the same time. I could change it so one has to be done after the other, and that will solve that over allocation because the project manager is not having to be in both places at the same time. Or I could reduce the proportion of the project manager's time against each of these tasks. So against the remove old unit, which is this one here, let's say the project manager doesn't put in 40 hours of work. They're only available 3/4 of their time, so 0.75. I then say, okay, what I've got to be very careful of, as we've seen previously when we make changes to resources, is what effect that will have on anything else, like the duration, like the work. So I say, okay, we can see that the duration of remove old units goes a little bit longer. It was a week, it's now going to take a week and a third. Because I've protected the work element here, the duration has changed. So it's still going to require 80 hours of work, 40 hours from the project manager, 40 hours from the joiner. Then that's just spread out the actual work being carried out. It hasn't, however, reduced my little red icon. If we go to the other task, let's knock down the project manager to 1/4 of their time. Okay, watch again what effect this has on the duration and the work. So the work remains the same, but the duration has been extended to cover 8 days. So that's actually longer than removing the old units. That's because of the need to spread out the project manager's availability. So in this case, reducing the percentage of availability of an individual hasn't actually done what I wanted it to do. It's just spread out the duration and not realistically. However, the project manager is not over allocated. So let's just do undo to put that back. So I need to do 2 steps of undo. So that was an option, one to explore with your particular task. The thing with these solutions is they will depend on the individual tasks and the individual situations and the individual resources involved. So one solution was to increase our maximum availability of the resources themselves, so effectively employ more people. The other was to spread out the availability of those resources assigned. That in itself causes the elongation of each of the tasks involved. However, if what I've done really is misassign the project manager, he doesn't need to be working all week on removing the units. So I'm going to change this and say fix the duration. The duration of removing the units is a week, I mean that. But the project manager only needs to be working for 20 hours. So I can actually physically type in the amount of work involved by the project manager. I fix the duration. The only thing left for Microsoft Project now to change is the actual proportion of the unit. So when I say OK, we have the project manager available for 20 hours. We do the same for the clean up the rubble. We'll fix the duration because I don't want the duration to be changed. It is 2 days. And let's drop down the project manager's work involved here. He's only going to have to do 4 hours. It's only effectively overseeing. And then OK. And we see that that removes the over allocation because the spreading out of the work the project manager has to do is now effectively reduced and spread out over the duration. So he only does 4 hours for us on cleaning up the rubble and rubbish and removing the old units. He only does 20 hours. So that's a potential solution. In this case, we fixed the duration. We've amended the actual amount of work involved because the original allocation was just to say, let's have the project manager. When you revisit it, and if you looked at things correctly in the first place, he isn't actually required to be there removing old units for the whole week. He's only doing a proportion of his week removing the old units. He's only doing a proportion of his week cleaning up the rubble and the rubbish. So it's another option. So let's do undo again. 2 steps of undo there. So we could increase our maximum number of resources, i.e. find more people, change the actual allocation of a person's assignment, either by changing the percentage of their units effectively, or physically changing the amount of work they will carry out, but fixing the duration so that you're protecting the length of that particular task. Another option is to actually take a person off a task and put another person in. So I'm over allocated here. Why is the project manager even removing the old units? Let's take him off and get the electrician to help out instead. So I have an electrician and a joiner. When I say OK, that then removes the project manager, but still leaves the resource over allocation. That's because if you look in the Gantt chart here, the electrician is on both of these tasks as well. Let's change the electrician out for the plumber. Then OK, and the over allocation then disappears because the plumber is not involved in the other task. So there's lots of ways of dealing with an over allocation. Increase the number of physical resources, reduce the allocation of a percentage of that resource, reduce the actual amount of work of a particular resource, or even change a resource out and use another resource that isn't being used at that point in time. So a little bit like being a bit more efficient. This is what being a project manager is effectively about. So those are few potential solutions for your problem of over-allocated. There are really 2 other good solutions for over-allocation, and we're going to explore those separately.